So next on stage, I'd just like to introduce Rachit Saksena from Telia, who will share his thoughts around building greener networks using NB-IoT. Thank you.
Hey everybody, exciting times to be here. I think before we go into the slides that I just have a very quick reflection I would like to share with you. There's so much technology available here. Everything that we have been talking about for the last 5 years in PowerPoints and Word documents, you can actually see live demos and real networks coming up live and interacting with each other. So this is a fantastic space to be. I'm thoroughly excited to be here and sharing some of the key learnings that we have. And I might have just sat down for this presentation if this IoT deployment guidelines was available 2 years ago, right? Because we quickly ran into a lot of these challenges that were mentioned in the previous panel discussion when we started rolling out millions of meters across Scandinavia, right? So this is a journey about a massive AMR rollout where Telia has more than 50% of the market share in Sweden. And we see that this wave of digitization is going across entire Scandinavia. It's probably one of the most connected societies in Europe and really pioneering the deployments of low power wide area. Right? It's a journey about massive digitalization and how CSPs such as Telia are able to help our enterprise customers in the utility space to be compliant with regulations within the utility sector. Right? It's also a journey about change of consumer behavior, because as more and more solar panels gets installed on top of the houses and the villas, they don't only consume electricity, but they also generate electricity. So there's a need of real-time information exchange, both for the homeowners as well as the electricity manufacturers, right, producers. And it's also a great story to tell, and the most exciting part is a deep collaboration between CSPs such as Telia and the utility provider, who's E.ON in this example, and this is a quote that you can see here. I wouldn't go much deeper into the overall journey, but I'll try to focus more on the challenges and the outcome and the learnings from it, right? But before we do that, it's good to add some context to it. So low power wide area is actually two things. So it's technology, narrowband and LTM technology for low power devices that's supposed to go on for a number of years without having any electricity power to them, a direct source. And it's also about wide area. That's the deep indoor coverage. That's the rural coverage across across the geography of the countries, right? And in the picture here, you see Heimdall, which is a electricity grid company in Norway. They're really using narrowband technology sensors to put them on the grids to do predictive maintenance, but to also understand the load going on the grid line so they can optimize the energy production. So again, a very sustainable cause being uptaken as a use case by Heimdall. Right? The second example in this is from Ratel, which is a Danish company deploying rat traps with a narrowband sensor and a number of different Bluetooth sensors that go under the drain to sense, if the rat is trapped and then take it out. But again, a new use case emerging on top of it, right? So they could not only sense a rat there, but they could also sense if there's blockage in the drains and monetize that data towards, municipalities and the communes, right? So a number of use cases coming on as we keep digitizing the data points that we're collecting, right? And it's becoming quite clear why enterprises are moving this way, right? So we talked about a lot of discussion here was on future proofing. That's part of the 5G evolution, absolutely. It's also simplifies from an enterprise perspective not having to deal with different kind of radio technologies to do different deployments, right? They can rely on cellular technology. They can have one or two CSP partners for the region to simplify their logistics chain, to simplify their manufacturing processes, to have simplified SLAs and contractual setup. So everything adds up in terms of creating a simplicity for our enterprises. And cellular technology, especially with LPV, it definitely lives up to it, right? So going into now, when you have the context, we're going to talk about wide area, deep indoor coverage, or rural coverage, and then getting from that into key learnings and outcome, right? So to start with the challenges, so far, we have had a multi-vendor radio environment. We have had, at least 2 or 3 different radio providers. And when you and when before we started the actual area rollout of the meters, we did a harmonization project. We called it LPV, a harmonization project, where we sort of synchronized the PSM, EDRX, all those different kind of timers that are needed. And we thought we were in a good shape. But when the meters started to roll out, when we were in a testing phase with our customers, we saw that it's not that easy. There were key challenges, especially around NB1, NB2, or EC0, which is extended coverage, which is a specific configuration that the device has to deal with when it's in a deeper indoor area, or it's far away from the base station, right? So extended coverage, dealing with a lot of extended coverage, along with PSM and EDRX parameters, taught us a lot. And this resulted in dealing with edge cases where majority of the devices behaved as they should, but there were always these devices that didn't. So what we had to do was create a very close-knit task force with the device OEMs, with the network OEMs, with the radio OEMs, as well as the application providers for the utility head-end systems, right? And that created a lot of value for everybody, right? We are constantly from Telia. We are part of the 5G IoT forum that was discussed previously, and we're feeding up all our experiences into that forum that is also has shaped up how the IoT guidelines have formed now, right? Another challenge that we ran into very quickly, because these are utility meters that's going to be installed probably for many, many years, probably at least a decade, right? The last rollout was done in 2005, 2006 across Scandinavia. So the promise is long-term availability. That means that we need to make sure that it's secured. We need to make sure that it's able to upgrade the firmware and the software. So FOTA became a really big challenge. A usual FOTA file is about a megabyte to 2 megabytes when you are upgrading the software or the firmware. And what we had to do to deal with that is work very closely in this task force, but to make sure that before we start the download, the application backend will slice the files into smaller chunks during the transmission, and then the device is actually able to combine those pieces and create a file that can upgrade the software, right? So from a learnings perspective, 3 things. The first one, have a task force mindset up when you are rolling this out for the first time into a new use case, along with your device team, along with the network team, radio team, and the application team. So that's one of the key learnings. If you already go with that mindset, you will not be, there is a less chance that you will not succeed. The second one is having device expertise all across the value chain. So device experts in the utility company, device experts in the CSPs like us, but also device experts in the radio team, and the access to a radio lab where you could test these configurations, iterate them continuously during the project rollout phase, and bring them out and test them, go back to the lab and go again with the rollouts, right? The third thing here has been a consolidation or grouping of all the different customer cases. So there can be different problem and incident management teams managing different customers. It has to come together. So we were able to isolate and consolidate different issues happening across different customers and take them out, take them out one by one, solve those problems, and then help out a faster rollout, right? So a collaboration from an OEM, Telia, and the AMR team was a winning strategy. And just when I'm talking about it, a thought comes to mind that about the geography. So a quick fact. So we ran into a problem where there were a lot of interference issues in a particular location where we had tried and tested out everything, and the throughput and the connection was still flaky. Well, we found out that sometimes if there are too many solar panels in an area, that can cause interference with narrowband, specifically with narrowband. So we had to, in those cases, use very few devices, but we had to recommend using directional antennas, right? So that's from a learning perspective. But when we look at the outcome, the beginning was challenging. For us doing this first time, to be honest, it was a shock that after doing a harmonization project, why are we getting into these issues? So a task force setup was a reactive measure rather than a proactive measure. So that's something I would recommend when you're thinking about massive scale deployments. The another outcome was that we didn't actually realize while doing this that we became the first commercial FOTA supplier to go through millions and millions of meters and provide this capability, which is a key learning that we have fed back into the IoT forum, right? And and last not the least, on the presentation here is what's next. So we've talked about wide area deployment so far. These are utilities, automated meter reading, smart meters that don't really have a battery constraint. What's happening now across Scandinavia is another wave of heating and water meters is starting, which will mostly require low power batteries, right? That means that this technology now, we're going to use quite a bit CDRX, EDRX, PSM kind of features that were not really used in the AMR space. So there's a lot of learnings that we'll get from it, and we'll bring them back here. So LPVA for constrained devices is what's happening next. Applying what we have done in the AMR space so far and taking that to the next wave. And again, another challenge is going to be, in this utility space, we're not going to have devices that are going to run for 6 months or a year. These devices needs to be there for many years. Again, we need to make sure that there is ability to do security patch updates, there's ability to do software and firmware updates. So FOTA versus low power, we will soon experience in real life across Scandinavia, and we'll bring back those learnings here.